I'm Sarah Delau, and I'm joined by our very own turn left celeb and debunker of the Centre of Migration Control, Lewis Aaron. Hi, how are you? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Apologies for that. Oopsie. Yeah, I'm all right. How are you? I'm very warm. I'm going to do the British thing and complain about the weather.
Yeah, it is warm, to be fair, but I'm living for it because it means I don't have to carry my hot water bottle everywhere I go, and I feel like I always carry my hot water bottle everywhere I go, so I think it's good. I'm liking it.
I just want to remind everybody as well that I live in an attic flat, so if you see me looking like I'm fighting for my life on camera because my flat is literally 30 degrees inside right now, and I've got my fan next to me that I have to keep turning on and off as I come into camera. If I look a mess, that's why. That's why.
Bless you. I'm really, really happy to have you though, because I feel like I haven't been with you in a while. So exciting times. Yeah. Guys, cut you off. Anyway, coming up on tonight's show, Labour councillor is cleared after throat-cutting rant. Western Aid is starving Gaza. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is getting exposed. Sorry, I'm reading so badly. A-level student humiliates BBC Live on air, and the ICC issues arrest warrant for Gavir and Smotrich on apartheid charges. Remember to like the stream and to drop comments because we get to them later. And they also make for interesting reads. But yeah, get sharing as well. But on to our first story. Labour councillor Ricky Jones has been found not guilty after attending a counter-protest back in August 2024 in Walthamstow, organised after the Southport stabbings, where he said this to the far right.
A suspended Labour councillor who called for throats to be cut has been found not guilty of encouraging violent disorder. 58-year-old Ricky Jones was arrested after saying this at an anti-racism rally which was being held in response to violent riots last summer. He insisted he was not encouraging violent disorder, and the jury at Snaresbrook Crown Court agreed.
Yeah, rough stuff. Jones was charged under the Public Order Act with encouraging violent disorder and suspended by his party for defying advice not to attend the protest. Jones told the court his words were an ill-advised reaction to reported far-right provocation, National Front stickers with razor blades, not a genuine call for violence. I'm sure we can predict what the right are saying and what's happening here, right? 4 syllables and it starts with the number 2 and it ends in justice. If you said two-tier justice, then you're absolutely right. Here comes Farage saying this is another outrageous example of two-tier justice. And then we had his backup dancers, Yusuf, saying this.
Two-tier justice in this country is out of control. In fact, Britain is now a country in which if you have the correct regime political views, you can openly call for the death and murder of your political opponents, be caught on video doing so, and walk free as an innocent man at the end of your jury trial. Ricky Jones, the Labour councillor, you may remember, not too long ago, said this.
They are disgusting, nasty bastards, and we need to cull their throats and get rid of them all.
His punishment? Nothing. Nothing at all. He was found innocent today after a jury trial. And this compares to Lucy Connolly, who tweeted out something that was nowhere near as directly insightful of violence as that awful speech given by that Labour councillor, and yet she pled guilty and is serving 31 months in jail, not being given any chance of early release, unable to see her children. We have two-tier policing in this country. We have two-tier justice in this country. The reality is this country needs a hard reset. The only way we're going to get through this is a reformed government at the next general election and Nigel Farage as our Prime Minister. We will reform the judiciary, we will reform policing, we will ensure that the law is applied even-handedly and fairly, without fear nor favour, no matter your political views. Britain is broken. Britain needs reform.
He really is a backup dancer, isn't he? Then we had people responding to his video with this. Fed up to Feck says, what did you do to help Lucy? I'll wait. Firstly, her name actually makes me laugh. I can safely say one thing. I'm certainly fed up to feck of people like that. Connolly pled guilty to inciting racial hatred. Pled guilty. I need to repeat that. Jones had a jury trial and acquitted. If you can't spot the legal difference, you might need less screen time on Twitter. Lewis, now, I'm not agreeing with Jones at all and what he said, because what he said was absolutely insane, no matter the context. But I'm interested in the right-wing leaders who have attacked the verdict as proof of a two-tier system. They've emboldened quite a few people in agreeing with them online and in person. Do you think there's any validity to those claims, and how should we assess allegations that justice is applied unevenly in cases like
There's no validity at all in any way. Like, just like lay out the facts, right? So I think it was 7th of August where he said the things. He made the comments. 8th of August, he was arrested and questioned. The 9th of August, the CPS authorized charges against him. And then obviously fast forward to a year later to now, obviously a jury has found him guilty. If you want to be mad that the jury, sorry, not guilty. If you want to be mad that a jury's found him not guilty, that's perfectly valid, right? There's been many cases over the years, high profile, about where people think people should have been found guilty. Maybe people got off on a technicality, whatever it might be. You can be mad at that. What else would they have changed in this case? It's a jury who has found him not guilty. They're mad because they're pushing this conspiracy, and it's been pushed all the way through. And they even use this with Tommy's cases as well. The idea that these people from the Southport riots were coerced into pleading guilty and not going to trial, and they were all coerced into doing this. And it's just a complete ridiculous joke. Obviously, they constantly bring up Lucy Connolly, which again brings up two separate questions. Excuse me, two separate questions which can't be conflated together. Lucy Connolly, you can argue about whether you think what she did was wrong or right, separate thing. The other separate thing is this sentence too harsh? They're two completely separate things. And people are just mixing lots of arguments into one here. He was also kicked out of the Labour Party as soon as he was arrested and questioned as well. He was suspended, whatever it might be. But what else would they want to see changed in this situation? Obviously, they want him to be found guilty. That's fine. You can have that opinion, but what do they want to change? The government, in theory, did everything that they should have here: arrest, question, charge, trial, being given a jury, and he was found not guilty. What do they want to change here? Where is the two-tier justice? It makes absolutely no sense. Now, obviously, what he said, technically, I would say, is obviously enough to meet the definition of, inciting violence or whatever it might be, or encouraging violence, whatever the strict definition is. They charged him for it. Usually the CPS, when they charge somebody, they're at least confident that somebody is going to potentially get found guilty, because they don't waste their time with cases where somebody might not get found guilty. So they were confident, at least in theory, that this person did what they did, and then it's gone to trial. It's gone before a judge, jury of peers, found not guilty. What else? What else can you do? What do they want to change? What solution are they offering? What policy change do they want there? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like they hate the legal system and how it works, but it's how it's worked for a really long time, that we have, jurors that decide if someone, pleads guilty, not guilty, sorry, that it then is then in their hands. So they're upset at the jurors. It makes no sense. I mean, I guess my next question would be like, what's at stake for people who kind of support, because the thing is, though, the right are going to view the likes of Jones as the left, right? And it's hard to kind of get away from that sometimes. So I kind of think, what's at stake for the left in how you respond to cases like that? Because on one hand, you're defending the verdict could be framed as standing up for due process and jury independence, and the principle that protest speech, even if it's ugly, hyperbolic like protest speech, shouldn't automatically be criminalized. And I say that quite carefully. But on the other hand, there's a risk that doing so looks like you're giving the green light to violent rhetoric, which could be seized upon by those who want to push that boundary further. So, like, how do we kind of like toe that line?
I think it's by keeping the rhetoric and the communication short and simple, kind of like I've just done. I might have gone off on a bit of a tangent, but it's just about laying out those facts. Arrested, questioned, charged, found not guilty. What do you want to change about that system? That should be the conversation. You could be angry that he wasn't found not guilty. That's fine. That's your opinion. But again, just keep it as simple as that. This shouldn't even be into a wider conversation, right? If there are any journalists out there, any people who are commentators, and any of these types of things, right? If you're going to be on a panel discussing this with anyone, just say to them, what do you want to be changed about that situation? Just ask them, what do you want to be changed? Do you not believe in juries? How should juries be formed? Like, what is it that you want to change? That's the only question that should be asked here in any way. He's been from the Labour Party. His political career is more than likely over. What else do you want? That's the way that this should be communicated. I think people, if they want to denounce it, they can. Obviously, what he said at a time when obviously there was violence going on in the country, it's not something I would encourage, endorse, or condone in any way. But ultimately, he went through the system and he the system. I don't know what else they want to change with that.
Because they don't actually care about justice. That's the irony of it all. And like you said, I think obviously I don't condone what was said. I need to make that evidently clear, because I do believe in a lot of the time, sometimes non-violent protests can be very, very effective, and we've seen that with what's been happening recently with the arrests in London. That very, very non-violent protests, but very, very impactful. But then there's a whole philosophical conversation you can have about how effective is violence in protests, etc., etc. But I guess I'd read this article recently because it was after the Southport, what had happened in Southport when the 3 girls were murdered. BB's granddad came out and said, stop using my granddaughter as a means to assert your political agenda. And it had me thinking about this story as well, and how you have the right who genuinely don't care about justice at all. They just care about one-upping the left every single time. They're like, yeah, well, you've taken Lucy, and Lucy was backing the fact that she lost a child, and she was passionate about the fact that all these that these 3 kids were murdered, and these 3 girls were murdered. Like, they don't care, Lewis, do they? They don't care at all.
No, they don't care, and this is why they don't have any consistency at all in any way, right? Like, it was just a couple of days ago, it might have been yesterday, I can't remember, but one of the Southport victims, I think it was their mother, came out about the news report about the police being encouraged to release, make sure they're collecting data on ethnicity and releasing it when there's a crime that's in the news and that's gaining traction. And she came out and was like, no, don't do this.
Facts.
Like, everyone is, capable of doing this. Like, this shouldn't be politicized in this way. And I think that's important, but they don't care about that, do they? They will just do whatever they can to weaponize the system in whatever way that they can. And let's look at the reality, right? You've got Nigel Farage, again, obviously Rupert Murdoch, James McMurdoch. Yeah, that's the right one.
Yeah.
Rupert. I'm getting mixed up between Rupert Lowe. James McMurdoch, right? They, went to jail for kicking his girlfriend in the head. They want Christian forgiveness for that. Nigel Farage's closest aide. What's his bloody name? The little weasel who's like I can't remember his name. Somebody will probably put it up in the comments. He was, found guilty while he was with Nigel Farage in the US of laundering money, and he was arrested by the FBI and went to jail for it. Like, these are Nigel Farage's associates. He's a massive supporter of Donald Trump, who incited an insurrection, who is obviously found guilty of federal charges and crimes. He was investigated for lots of various different acts and items. He's encouraged violence in the past. They don't have any consistency. Tommy, one of the leaders in this space, not everyone likes him, but he does have a subsection of the right. He's literally facing charges again now because he recently assaulted somebody in the tube in London. Like, these are the people. And then let's not even forget, on top of that report that came out just a few weeks ago from The Guardian, where they did the freedom of information requests for all the police forces around the UK for the violent protesters who were arrested and charged, and found that 2/3, I can't remember the exact statistic, but a huge chunk of them were previously reported for domestic violence. That doesn't mean that they were charged, but it's very relevant, right? It's a high proportion. There was one area where I think it was up to 2/3, over 60% of them in one area. I think it might have been Bristol, where of those who were arrested had charges, reports related to domestic violence against their name. These are the crowd of people that we're talking about. Every single protest that's going on outside migrant hotels, like, it's all the fascists who are there. I'm not saying that everybody there is an absolute 100% fascist. I'm just saying, like, all the fascist leaders are there, and they're trying to blend in. You've got Nick Tanconi from UKIP just the other day doing a literal Nazi salute on camera. Like, this is who these groups of people are and who they associate with. So they have no legs to stand on when it comes to violence or criminality, because the call is coming from inside the house.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. Completely right. And your analysis is spot on. Thank you, Lewis. We've got like 3 other stories to get through, so I'm going to get on to this. No. Don't ever apologize, Lewis, for your incredible analysis. On to our second story, though. Safety? Not even close. Spokesperson from the GHF, otherwise known as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, was challenged yesterday on Channel 4 about its operations, backers, and why so many people are being shot dead trying to get to their aid sites. Let's have a look at what he had to say.
The facts are widely known now that people go to your sites,
What's
they
the
pick
fact?
up food.
Tell me the fact.
And
Tell me the
they
fact.
either get shot dead going towards the food or leaving after they've got food. Now, they may not be literally on the site, but they are near the site. And the allegation from the aid agencies is that you have militarized your operation. You're working in conjunction with the IDF and with your own armed guards. And therefore, you are effectively the bait in a death trap.
Yeah, so you keep repeating that over and over. We are not. And I would like to point out, are you trying to tell me that the United Nations have never worked with groups like ours or militarized and armed security personnel? Because that's also false. Congo, Haiti, Bosnia, this is the only place on planet Earth that the United Nations has a problem with the way we are distributing aid. The American military in Iraq delivered aid itself, and you didn't hear this kind of criticism of it. So again, I would ask you,
do you condemn
what
the
agendas of these aid organizations? Of course, every casualty is regrettable and a tragedy, and we push the IDF to deconflict
why is the
all
IDF shooting them?
You'd have to ask the IDF that.
But you're the ones who are working with the IDF.
No,
you literally said they're in your offices.
They're in the operations center because the IDF also works with the United Nations. Have you asked them? Have you had a representative from the United Nations on and asked them why there are casualties all over their convoys, all over social media? Why they can only get 6.5% of their aid?
This is quite different, Mr. Fay. You know, this is systematic. Okay. It's happening all the time.
Systematic? No, it is not happening all the time. It is not. We have been operating for almost 3 months. And it does not happen all the time. And by the way, this is an active war zone. We are delivering food to Gazans in an active war zone. And if you look at social media, you can see the videos of our distributions where there are no deaths happening. And then you can look at the UN aid convoys where people are swarming, people are getting run over, and armed men are riding it through Gaza City, having diverted it while people starve.
Yeah, before
there is
the
nothing
blockade,
humanitarian.
People were not being shot
humanitarian
near aid
about
sites.
that.
Before the Israeli blockade, people were not being shot at aid sites, lorries were not being overrun, people were not starving. Since the blockade, all of that has happened.
He said that there were no deaths, but I think that can absolutely be contested. GHF says not a single incident at or in the surrounding vicinity of the GHF site, and that warning shots are all that's being fired. Let's have a look at that, shall we? Let me just pull up the UN, Gaza Health Ministry, and Guardian investigators. In an investigation done by The Guardian, they state that in May 2025, Israel dismantled the United Nations-led humanitarian aid distribution system in Gaza. In its place came a distribution scheme run by the secretive Gaza Humanitarian Foundation that came under immediate scrutiny for its militarized model and close ties to Israeli authorities, which rights groups warned undermines the core humanitarian principles of humanity, neutrality, impartiality, and independence. In the months since, humanitarians' worst fears about the aid sites have been realised. International observers have expressed concern as daily reports emerged of civilians being shot, shelled, or crushed whilst attempting to access aid. Almost 1,400 Palestinians have reportedly been killed while seeking food primarily near GHF distribution sites. Bitter dispute over responsibility has followed. Journalists, Palestinian eyewitnesses, and humanitarian workers on the ground have attributed the killings to the Israeli Defense Force, the IDF, alleging that soldiers have fired on civilians. The IDF and the GHF, of course, reject those allegations, denying the reported death toll and claims of misconduct. They argue that accusations of starvation are either exaggerated or the result of a UN failure to distribute aid effectively. Now, a new investigation by The Guardian has corroborated long-standing claims by Palestinian journalists and aid workers, finding evidence that Israeli forces have repeatedly fired on civilians attempting to access food. Between May 27th and July 31st, at least 1,400 Palestinians were killed seeking aid at GHF sites, per UN human rights data, many confirmed as victims of Israeli gunfire. And that's from the United Nations. And finally, Doctors Without Borders state that this is not aid, this is orchestrated killing. I mean, it's also painstakingly obvious, though, isn't it? We don't need to be told any of this. We've seen it, we've read it. This is the weaponization of food unfolding right in front of us, using hunger to force outcomes. That constitutes as a war crime. With UNRWA frozen out, Gaza's people have come to see GHF aid as an imperialist ploy. The choice Palestinians are faced with are fear of gunfire and starvation, two sides of the same coin. In effect, the GHF model turns life-saving aid into a military-managed bounty. Lewis, GHF insists their distribution model is neutral and safe, yet UN data, medical records, and eyewitness accounts point to hundreds of deaths at or near their sites. How do we reconcile this gap? Is it bad data, willful blindness, or part of a political strategy to sanitize military control of aid? Lewis, you're muted. I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I keep doing that because I keep putting my fan on because it's so warm. So I mute it so it doesn't make the little noise on the microphone. But with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, obviously Israel has spent literally decades, discrediting the UN in any way that they can. We know that they have operations linked to discreditation of lots of different bodies and organizations. Even just today, there was an investigation that was revealed that I can't remember who it was, but basically found sources within Israeli intelligence which have confirmed that Israel has a dedicated agency within its intelligence agency who are their main job is just to discredit all the journalists within Gaza and anyone who is basically a Palestinian journalist and make them appear to be Hamas operatives. That was just revealed today. They have so many dedicated resources to discrediting all of these institutions. But the one thing that they can't discredit is the eyewitnesses who come forward who've literally worked with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. We have, I can't remember his name, but the original guy who was going to be in charge of it, he stepped down before it even officially started because he said he didn't meet humanitarian standards. And I'm guessing the guy on TV is the guy who took over from him in the interview. We have multiple soldiers and multiple Gaza Humanitarian Foundation workers who have come forward in separate interviews. I think so far we've got two separate news outlets in Israel. I think it was Channel 12, which is Khan, which is basically the equivalent of the BBC. It's the public broadcaster. We have Haaretz. We have New York Times, CNN, The Guardian, AP News, Reuters, and there's probably a couple more out there where they've all interviewed either soldiers who have operated at the site or Gaza Humanitarian Foundation workers, aka American contractors, who have said and provided evidence of people just being eliminated. We obviously had there was the AP investigation, which specifically got the video footage, and they even got like texts and documents from some of the American contractors, which literally shows like Americans celebrating as they're firing into crowds of people. There was that famous clip that we put on the show a few weeks ago, I think it was, where it's somebody shouts, "Oh, I think you got one." And then another American replies, "Hell yeah, boy." Like we have all the evidence that we need. The issue that we have even with this evidence is like, how do we use it properly? What can we do with it? Because a poll came out of Israel just last week where Israelis were asked, how concerned are you about the claims of like the conditions within Gaza in reference to like famine and the reports of hunger? And I think it was around 86% of people said that they were not concerned or not concerned at all. So if we have this information and we can't reach out or find a way to give it to Israelis or get it into their news, because this was actually a poll that was done by Haaretz, but again, because of the way the media works in Israel, they're just not, I'm not going to say very good. It's obviously, it's a bias, it's a motive, it's a I won't go far to say it's a conspiracy. I think it is just inbuilt bias of how people in the media work. That they just don't want to report on these things. They don't want to go out of their way to find these stories and publish them and spend time on them. So even though we have all this evidence, it's really hard to do anything with it because ultimately there's only really two countries that can stop what's happening right now, which is Israel and America. And if neither of them are going to listen to all the evidence out there, it's really hard to say what we can actually do with all the information that we have to not just take action now to stop it, but hold people accountable in the future.
It's hard as well because I say this, I probably say this almost every week I come on the show, that every time I watch the news I cry, but I force myself to watch it because I'm privileged to be sat where I am, and witness what I'm witnessing from afar, and I recognize that privilege. But how can people, how can Palestinians trust humanitarian aid, or how can humanitarian aid be trusted at all anywhere, if particularly in Palestine they're closely working with the IDF, and you have, like you said, eyewitnesses, residents literally describing GHF sites as death traps, but they still go because of desperation. They still go because they want to be fed. What does that say about the way siege conditions force people to risk their lives for food? And what are the long-term consequences for community trust in any aid effort?
Well, no, I think UNRWA, for example, who've operated in there for absolute decades, they are and they were trusted there, but Israel banned them. They said that they were funding terrorists and they were helping them out. And again, they still actually haven't provided the evidence or proof of that, by the way. And then the Knesset voted to essentially expel them and ban them from Israel and all Palestinian territories. And obviously, that's what's led to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. So they did have trust in that system. They operated from hundreds of separate points in Gaza. They had I think it was like between 200-300 different aid distribution sites within Gaza for decades. And now, through the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, they've whittled it down to, I think it's 4 in total. Many of the corridors that people need to use to get to these aid sites are in like combat, like red zones where they're not even supposed to go. And then obviously we've all seen the videos. It's essentially the Hunger Games. You have people, literally mounted on like sand dunes, just waiting for the firing to stop so they can, run an extra few feet to the next sand dune in hopes that they don't get shot on the way. Nothing, I don't think, has ever been documented and evidenced this much out of anything that we've ever seen. This level of evidence from reports from witnesses, from video, to people who've worked, from the soldiers to the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation workers, to things that Israel's just admitted that they're doing. We've never seen it in any way like this before. So it's undisputable at this point. It's incontrovertible, like everything that they're doing. I hope one day that obviously they do get held accountable, but I don't know what the alternative in the future is going to be in terms of aid, because right now we've got multiple countries dropping aid into Gaza from the air. It's caused deaths already. It's caused damage to buildings, and we still don't really have numbers or information on what actually is in the aid. Now, I'm sure obviously the countries who are dropping it off are doing whatever they can to get the best stuff in, but this stuff is obviously still vetted by Israel in lots of ways. We know that the conditions that they've created have created a black market. This is why you hear about like vegetables getting sold off for $20 for like one potato, or hundreds of dollars for one bag of flour, and because of the conditions that have been created there. The only way I can see any resolution to this is possibly the idea of the proposal that recently got put forward in the last few days by, I think it was Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey, which is Israel withdraws, Hamas stops and agrees to do no military fighting, and a American Arab-Israeli force comes in, supervises the area, sorts out the aid until a permanent solution has been found. Now, people might be skeptical because Americans going in, but when you've got American and Arab countries working together who are supportive of Palestinians, hopefully that would create a cycle of accountability, right? When you've got multiple forces from different countries all working together on the ground. This is the only way forward I can think of right now, because Israel's not going to allow anything else to happen. But again, they're just going to come up with an excuse to reject this idea, because that's what they always do.
Always. And they always find a way to blame people.
I just want to quickly add as well before we move on, like the number got updated a few hours ago, because I think you quoted 1,400 earlier. It's almost 1,800 now.
Isn't that insane though? It feels so.
That's just the aid distribution sites, by the way. Yeah.
It feels so dystopian. And you had the likes of the spokesperson of the GHF saying, "Yeah, there's been no deaths," and I'm thinking, are you fucking delusional? No, they're not even delusional. Like they're willfully lying to our faces, wanting to prop themselves up as these, humanitarians. Like, hey, we're really trying to help Palestinian people. No, you're not. You're trying to line your pockets, and you're working with a fucking terrorist whilst you're at it. So yeah, maybe we'll see some change happen, but who knows? Now, if you're enjoying the stream, we've still got 2 more stories, but if you are enjoying the stream, then please like and subscribe, just to remind viewers that we are 5 volunteers who have full-time jobs and we don't get paid for this work, but one day we would love for this to be our full-time job. So if you can, then consider becoming a supporter by going to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support. There you can become a monthly patron, or there is another link for a one-off donation. Of course, you can also become a YouTube member for just 99 pence, but don't put yourself out. A like, a comment, a subscribe, a share still goes just as far. But on to our third story. It's A-level results day yesterday. The BBC are doing their usual rounds, and one would expect the usual "cheers mum, thanks teachers, I've got my grades, I'm going to X university." Instead, one student delivers this.
So on that note, I just want to say free Palestine and the genocide, and the BBC is complicit.
All right, we're here to talk about A-level results. All right, thank you for your thoughts. We're here to talk about A-level results today. Gaza, a whole different subject. Just tell us...
Sorry, what a legend. It's the way he smiles and he's like, the BBC's complicit. The BBC's complicit. And I'm like, okay, tell him. This wasn't a one-off. The National flagged a similar Radio 2 moment the same day. A caller silenced mid-sentence for saying the BBC's complicit in genocide. Let's have a listen.
Mary's in Manchester. Hi, Mary.
Hi there. I'm just calling. Thank you so much for putting me on.
Oh, you're welcome.
The BBC and the UK government are complicit in the Palestinian genocide.
Oh, okay. Not about wedding speeches at all. Cut that one off there because I have no idea what else they were going to say. We are talking about wedding speeches here. Mark emails from Leicestershire.
I'm loving it. I love it. Call out the BBC. The frustration is not new. Watchdogs from the Centre for Media Monitoring to Memo have tracked it. Palestinians die in BBC headlines. I'm just going to summarise this for you. But they essentially say that Palestinians, quote unquote, die in BBC headlines, whereas Israelis get, quote unquote, killed or, quote unquote, murdered. 33 times more airtime per Israeli death than per Palestinian one during the 2024 escalation. Context stripped. Siege, occupation, decades of dispossession vanish into the ether through the sheer delegitimization of casualty numbers on the Palestinian side. And you can check out that report online. I can link it if you want. And when the powerful get confronted, especially by young, articulate nobodies, some may say, the impartial facade cracks. Outcome, the awkward topic changes, the corporate platitudes, the quiet edits to memory hole dissent. But that's why these clips hit so hard. A teenager didn't just talk about grades. They said, hello, BBC, you're a problem, and we see through your bullshit. Lewis, I kind of just want to get your thoughts on this. I mean, this video is going everywhere, isn't it? What are your reactions to it?
Yeah, obviously, people are just going to find whatever way they can as people get more desperate in what's happening right now, not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank as well, particularly. That they're just going to find whatever way that they can just to get a voice out there, because voices are being suppressed. There are, again, I think it's worth saying, there have been some investigations out at the BBC which have been good towards this topic, but overall, it's overwhelmingly bad. And that's obviously to do with like separation of powers within the BBC, right? In terms of, who's in charge of putting a Louis Theroux documentary out, which was obviously allowed to go through, and it went through, and it was very revealing and very educating, versus like the other issues with documentaries. Now, obviously, you have to separate out like BBC and BBC News, but even then it's sectioned, right? You might have one editor in part of the BBC who's really good on this and like wants to spend more time on this, and then you have another who's more biased. Obviously, we know the implications and accusations that have been made about like one of the editors. I can't remember his name. Owen Jones did a whole thing on it about how he's basically like super pro-Israel, and he's been accused of specifically editorializing lots of stuff in the BBC in terms of publications. We have obviously the issues with, I'm really bad at recalling names today, but the guy who's on the board, if anyone wants to shout out in the comments, who is basically the owner of the Jewish Chronicle, I think it is, or is it Jewish News? I can't remember which one it is. And he's literally got links to the Netanyahu government, and he's in charge of like some form of like editorial standards as well as part of his board member role. It's ridiculous, right? These things need to be sought out, and these things need to be taken action on, but no one's got the will to do it, right? Lisa Nandy's not going to do anything about it because that's her job as culture secretary, and obviously the BBC is not having the will to do it either. But obviously the issue that we have, because while you were talking, I thought I'd just check the BBC website, right? Because before the show, I was just catching up on like live updates from lots of different places related to Israel. And in terms of just the bias as well, it's not just the BBC that's the problem in terms of coverage. Today has been an insane day just in the West Bank alone. There've been multiple attacks, like an insane amount in lots of different locations. True. France has condemned them for destroying a school that they helped fund. There's been so many insane attacks today in the West Bank because they feel emboldened now as well, because their government's not backing down from any threats. They're saying they're going to annex the West Bank, right? And the BBC hasn't covered that today. Neither is really anybody else. You know, if the opposite was happening, right, and there was multiple incursions into Israel, can you imagine the breaking news cycle that would be happening right now if there was multiple incursions into Israel, and people were going in and destroying schools and killing people? It would be headline news everywhere. But it's become acceptable not to report on the same things that are essentially happening every single day in the West Bank, because I'm guessing, what is it, boring? They obviously have the bias towards it as well, because from a media perspective, you would essentially be telling the same story almost every day because the same things are happening every day. But the scale of attacks just in the West Bank alone are rising up, and obviously you've got the same stories coming out of Gaza every single day too, and all of the media is complicit. We can talk about who's complicit the most and who's the worst for it, because it's also, just to add this in, it's funny because the BBC get attacked by the right as well on this topic. There was a recent push for the BBC to correctly translate a Arabic word that's like part of the Palestinian dialect, which directly translates the word Jew and Jews, but it's the word that they also use to refer to Israelis, and like linguistically it makes sense from a translating perspective to translate it to the word Israelis, but the Israel lobby was trying to push the BBC to change it to the word Jews. So every time they were quoting Palestinians talking about the Israelis, they would be translated into using the word Jews. So it makes them obviously sound like they're talking about Jews this and Jews that and Jews. But the BBC refused. So there are battles to be won and there are battles to be lost. But the BBC is getting it from all sides. But they're definitely more complicit, I think, from a pro-Palestinian perspective than a pro-Israel perspective, because they constantly capitulate to these people.
Yeah, the BBC can go fuck themselves. Like, I don't pay my TV license. I don't watch the BBC. I sound like a right winger. Fuck the BBC. I'm going to go to our final story because I'm conscious of time, but that was really, really well said, Lewis. Thank you so much. So on to our final story. The International Criminal Court, the ICC, is reportedly prepared arrest warrant applications for charges relating to apartheid against two far-right Israeli ministers, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich. But there's a catch, according to the Middle East Eye, who produced this exclusive story. Arrest warrant applications against two prominent Israeli ministers on charges of apartheid are already, and with two deputy prosecutors at the ICC. If the warrants for National Security Minister Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Smotrich are issued, it will be the first time that the crime of apartheid is charged at the International Court. And now here's the catch. Those applications for the arrest warrants are completely done. An ICC source told MEE the only thing that didn't happen was submitting them to court, the source said, on condition of anonymity. MEE can reveal that the deputy prosecutors have the power to submit them to pre-trial judges for examination, but some within the ICC believe the applications will be quietly shelved as the court faces unprecedented external pressure. This effort unfolds amid powerful currents of political interference and intimidation. The United States, in particular, has responded with force. A group of 12 Republican senators warned ICC prosecutor Karim Khan, "Target Israel and we will target you," threatening to end all US support for the court and impose personal sanctions. In early 2025, former President Trump signed Executive Order 14203, imposing financial and visa sanctions against ICC officials. From the UK, former Foreign Secretary David Cameron reportedly told Khan that if the ICC proceeded with arrest warrants, the UK would withdraw funding and pull out of the Rome Statute altogether. Meanwhile, Israel has allegedly waged a covert campaign of intimidation over nearly a decade, deploying its intelligence agencies to surveil, hack, smear and threaten ICC prosecutors, including both former Chief Bensouda and her successor, Karim Khan. From US lawmakers and sanctions, UK political threats and Israeli covert operations, it has cast a shadow over the ICC's independence. The court now faces a crucible, upholding international justice in the face of state-backed intimidation or yield to the tide of geopolitical coercion. Lewis, it was actually you that brought this story to me for tonight, and I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on it. What do you make of all of this?
Oh, I appeared now. Hello. Yeah, it's obviously it's quite fascinating that actually what the story even specifically said is that the arrest warrants were basically ready to go when Karim Khan was still at the court. He hasn't fully left. He's obviously stepped back until the investigation against him is finished, and I'll come to that in a second. They were ready to go, and they knew that they were ready to go because part of the threats and the investigations that not only the Middle East Eye have been very consistent on, they've definitely got a really good contact at the ICC. I don't know who it is, but the information that they've been pulling out over the last few weeks has been insane. But Le Monde as well, one of the French outlets, reported on the threats against the ICC, Karim Khan, and the prosecutors very recently. But basically, it's all just one big giant actual conspiracy in the literal sense, not in the colloquial conspiracy theory term. A literal conspiracy. Israel has obviously been caught in the past threatening and spying on the previous ICC prosecutor, as you mentioned, Ben Swada from I think she was Gambian prosecutor, and obviously with Karim Khan. This goes back to when he was getting nominated, right? So let's just remind everybody that Karim Khan is a British prosecutor who was literally nominated on behalf of the UK when the nominations were coming up by Michael Gove, right? So this is a guy who is a conservative. His brother was a conservative MP as well. Let's not talk about him. Look him up if you want to. And he has prosecuted like lots of radical Muslim groups across the world. He's worked on all these cases because obviously they tried to push the idea that he was biased. And from the very beginning, Israel and America worked together to try and make sure that he wouldn't actually get nominated because they knew that he would be going after them because they deserve to be investigated, right? And obviously we know that it's Israel who's hacked the ICC. We know that it's Israel who's been leaking all this information. We know that it's Israel who are making up these claims or creating the conditions for these claims to be accused against Karim Khan about him sexually assaulting somebody. And now I am usually obviously always the person which is like we need to give credit to obviously people who are the victims or potential victims of these situations. And I've always held back on saying like, oh, it's all made up, it's just one big giant conspiracy theory. So I wouldn't ever want to disparage a victim because two things can be true. He could be a predator and he could also be a very good prosecutor at the same time. But what's come out from the Middle East Eye a few weeks ago is that they've got a hold of phone calls between the alleged victim and Karim Khan and multiple phone calls of basically her saying like, I am being used as a pawn. I am not trying to push an investigation against you. And what was also revealed is that Israel has basically compromised one of the people who was on the case of the ICC and was leaking information on Karim Khan. It is all one giant big conspiracy theory. And because when you add all of this into the threats from David Cameron to the ICC that was reported on, from everything that the US has done, from the threats to the sanctions to the judges on the prosecutors, to obviously Israel spying, from one of the reports that came out from the Middle East Eye where everyone at The Hague was essentially warned that they are potentially enemies of Israel. That's what their intelligence found out, that literally Mossad was in The Hague. They are trying to destroy our democratic systems. And because I'm just moving from point to point to point, I want to say something that's really important, right? The history of the ICC is still a relatively new court. I think it was like 2003-ish that it was founded, but it was based off of the Nuremberg trials. It was based off of the idea of we have one court, which is the ICJ, and I'm going to come to another story on that in a second. Sorry, there's just so much information. The ICJ, which is about states and conflicts between states and groups of people, and the ICC is more about like individuals who are committing these crimes. The ICC was supposed to be made decades ago. It was supposed to be a permanent court that resided, as it does now, to hold individuals accountable, but it just took the countries post-World War II a very long time to finally set it up. And there is this weird, twisted, evil kind of irony that the people who are trying to take it down, the court was created in the image of the people who were taken down and prosecuted for committing some of the worst war crimes in like history, right? The literal genocide of Jewish people and other groups as well. And I don't know how, it feels so uncomfortable inside to even think about that. The descendants of, Holocaust survivors are now trying to destroy the court, which was created to uphold the crimes that was done against them. And I don't know how I sit with that.
Yeah.
It's weird to sit with. And they're trying to destroy democratic institutions. And I feel powerless because they're going to take us all down with them.
There is a sense of powerlessness. I mean, I'm trying to like legitimize or understand the weight of these warrants as a whole, because I'm a little bit like, skeptical about the ICC's existence anyway. And it's because they have
Because it's racist.
they have a very uneven record. Like, they have gone really hard for the likes of, and rightfully so, Sudan's Omar al-Bashir, who fucking awful dictator has ruined that country. And Kenya's William Ruto, and then did try to go for Putin-ish, but like I don't feel like they went hard enough. I don't even but I think of like George Bush and then Tony Blair, who did what they did in Iraq, and then kind of nothing happened to them. Or Barack Obama for the drone wars. But I just wonder how seriously can we take this thing that ICC are doing at the moment? Because it's great that they're going for Gavir and Smotrich, but it's hard, like I said earlier, to support that, but then also know that there's been an uneven record of the ICC. So like, how do we look at this? It sounds like I'm doing two-tier justice, but like there is like selective justice here, is there not?
So, like, again, my knowledge with the ICC isn't grand and great in any way. What I would push back on with when people say the idea of the ICC itself being racist, I would probably say it's more to do with the fact is like how the ICC works from a not executive level, but like an overseeing level, right? Like it's technically, partly connected to the UN, but also still separate and independent in lots of ways, right? If the UN is essentially controlled by the UN Security Council, where you've got permanent seat members, which are all Western countries, and obviously a few others who aren't, but it's mostly the West who controls it, right? And we can basically stop anything going through. We have our permanent seat and we have our veto power. Because we have such power there in the West, that obviously then dribbles down into any of the institutions within the UN, right? Until you get a wild card like Karim Khan, right? You would probably think that, he would have his inbuilt biases not to go after America or not to go after Israel or any Western powers. I don't think necessarily it's like the judges and the prosecutors themselves as like a consistent existence are probably the racist ones. It's just the power and influence around them. It's the Western imperialism filtering through into the court. Because obviously Benswada, who is I think she was Gambian, she did start looking at America. She did start looking at Israel, and they went after her for that. They threatened her. It's a really interesting investigation that The Guardian did. They did it with, is it called Plus 972, that Palestinian outlet? I can't remember what they're called. They're really, really good. But they did like a joint investigation into this and found, Israel was literally following her around the world and showed her transcripts of like her husband's phone calls. They turned up at her house in The Hague with like envelopes of cash. Like, it's a really weird, crazy story. And when the tide starts turning against obviously Western imperialism and colonialism, they will start fighting back. And obviously that is what is happening, because you've got a Western prosecutor from the UK coming in and being like, you know what, I understand how this works. I understand I'm going to get attacked. I understand I'm going to get targeted. I might even get killed. Who knows? Or people around me might get killed. I'm still going to do what's right, which is why Karim Khan needs to be praised, because he is taking on an institution that could possibly affect the rest of his life or even potentially end it. And attached to one of the investigations is that there was another British prosecutor who was working as part of like the wider case, and he just quit. He was like, fuck this, I'm going back to the UK. So it does obviously have an effect. So I think people like Karim Khan should be praised. The ICC should still obviously be criticised as an institution, but the tide is changing.
It's changing, but I guess I have one more question, because obviously you brought this story to me and I was thinking about it earlier, and I was thinking like, okay, it's great that this is happening, arrest warrants.
If it ever will happen though.
This is exactly it, like if it will happen. But say it does, would this embolden the far right in Israel and kind of posit Gavir and Smotrich as these like nationalist martyrs? Or could this like pave some sort of path towards creating like political pressure when it comes to Netanyahu's like coalition? Like, where could this go? Could we actually see something tangible happen from this, or are we just going to see the emboldening of the far right in Israel by making these people seem like martyrs?
So one of the issues that we have is that this didn't get reported on too much, but I think it was back in April. The court changed some rules about how they publicize what they're doing. So previously, when Karim Khan was doing the arrest warrants, he did a press conference about this is what I'm investigating, and this is what I'm looking at, and we're going to try and seek arrest warrants and apply to the court, and then you've got to wait for everything to be reviewed. And obviously there was lots of news and speculation. They've changed the rules. So if these applications got submitted, they may have already been submitted. They could be getting adjudicated on right now, and we won't know because they changed the rules. And we won't find out whether they agree to them or not until they agree to them or not. So we don't actually know where they are right now. Chances are they're probably still shelved. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because it obviously takes away the pressure and the waiting from the court, and obviously potentially even protects them as well, because Israel might not have full access, or they might not get updates from them about where things are at. I think the reason why they did such a big campaign against ICC, not just because they were going after Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant, but when they're going after Ben Gvir and Smotrich, they're not going after them for like war crimes, as in like you did all these bombs, you instructed soldiers to do this thing. It's like they're going after crimes of apartheid, which puts the entirety of Israel into question and how it runs itself. Right? We all know it's apartheid. Everybody who's a decent human rights lawyer, campaigner, organizer, institution have said for years it's apartheid. Some more recently, yeah, exactly, and they deny it. If they have arrest warrants put against them from apartheid, that is not just attacking those two individuals. That's attacking everything within Israel. That's attacking the entire system. And if they get found guilty of it, they therefore get found guilty of apartheid in itself. If they get found to be individually holding up apartheid, obviously it'll never go to trial. They'll never get caught, unfortunately. But even just the application of the arrest warrant, even the issuing of them, would potentially change things in terms of like how the West navigate this, because it's not just a case of one bad guy who happens to be in power doing bad things. It's people are being held accountable for an entire system, which is very, very different.
Big times. Thank you, Lewis, for that. Let's go to our elusive producer from the dungeon for your comments.
Hello, Curtis.
Hello. They've let me out the dungeon.
Oh, shit.
Into the second dungeon.
Can I add one more thing? Because somebody
Please
did ask.
do.
No, because I mentioned something. I didn't actually go back to it. I mentioned the ICJ earlier. Oh, did I send you guys that article about the ICJ judge? Did I send you it?
No.
So then one of the ICJ judges is a deputy judge of the entire ICJ court. She's Ugandan, and she was found to be at like a local church or something in Uganda, saying God is asking me to side with Israel. The end times are coming, and I need to, and I see that coming, and God wants me to be a part of it. And I was just like, are you fucking kidding?
What is going on?
Are you fucking kidding? The last thing, and she was the only judge out of the panel who she agreed with the legal consensus, but voted against the action. She was the only judge on the panel to do that. And that's because of God, apparently, because the end times are coming.
Fucking
That came out of the Middle East Eye today as well. Yeah, everyone should be catching up on the Middle East Eye. Oh, did Curtis leave? I didn't want him to leave. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that. Come back, Curtis.
Send him back to the dungeon. Oh, he's back. Hello.
I don't know. Am I in or out the dungeon? I'm not sure.
Come out. It's good to have you.
No, I put it on full screen for you because I know you're going to drop some truth bombs. I want people to
truth nukes.
To pay attention. Looks like Lewis is the soundproof box. He is.
Can we do a poll in the chat? Because I have been told twice now, and I'm very annoyed about this, that these look like bathroom tiles, and people keep saying to me, like, are you doing videos in your bathroom? And I'm really annoyed because these are sound tiles.
Oh, are they?
And I paid money for them, and people think I'm in my frigging bathroom.
Let me see if I can do a poll then. What's the question?
Is Lewis filming from his bathroom? Or is that a Wix job?
Sorry, what's the question? Is
Lewis filming from his bathroom?
Lewis.
Or is he in a soundproof box?
I am boiling right now.
It's hot. Like honestly, I actually can't read properly because I'm so hot.
So in the living room, the thermostat was 30, but in this room, the thermostat says 25.
Do you know why? It's because you're filming from your bathroom.
So I will reveal the results at the end of the show.
Exciting!
So fantastic show, very informative. I apologize, I'm still a bit under the weather, and actually I've extolled all of my energy on Navarra actually because I was like, oh, I'll be chill Navarra because like my energy ain't there. But then when you get into the discussion, you can't help it, and I'm fucking going mad. So I've used all my energy.
I love that hat.
I'm sweaty. I don't. I'm putting my hat on.
It is also really, really hot.
It's really warm.
And I'll tell you what, when you're sick, it's not the one. I've spent most of my days this week in the bedroom because my
man flu.
Well, it's still flu, so
man flu.
Anyway, Becca A, 2-tier justice. Let's remind ourselves, 2 tiers when spy cop prey on peaceful activists for decades, whilst never infiltrating right-wing groups. 2-tier. Well, obviously that's a very good comment because we've spoken out about 2-tier because it is true. There is a 2-tier justice system, but not in the way the right wing thinks.
Exactly.
When it comes to spy cops, for example, when it comes to Just Stop Oil, when it comes to the 2018 riots, of course, people were being locked up for minimal crimes such as stealing rice. I don't think it was 2018, sorry. I think it was 2012. So there is 2-tier justice, of course, but not in the way the right wing think.
Yeah, not in the way that they think. So go ahead, Lewis.
No, that's such a joke. Because I made a video about this earlier as well, and a guy came into my comments like,
right, sorry, I'm getting my dates completely wrong. My brain's a bit foggy.
What'd you say, my lover?
It's at 2011. I got 2018 and 2012. It's 2011. Sorry,
okay.
my brain is fogged up today.
It's fine. It's Friday.
Don't you worry. You worry. It's Friday. But no, a guy came into my comments earlier when I made a video about this, and he was talking about 2-tier justice. So I said to him, like, so when did you start this journey of wanting a better justice system? Was it any of the reports over the decades that proves how the justice system is not fair when pursuing and investigating and prosecuting and the jailing of working class people, crimes against women not taken seriously, perhaps how it's harsh on ethnic minorities? Which report, set of data, research set you on this path? Or is it just rhetoric that's repeated enough to you so it just sounds true, right? They don't actually have any evidence to back up their claims other than just repeated rhetoric, right? If they wanted to, I'm sure they could produce some crappy report on it from the Center of Justice Control as opposed to the Center of Migration Control. But they don't actually have anything to back up what they're saying. They don't care about any other report that has ever come out which talks about the inequality in the justice system until they think it's affecting them, which it's not.
Well, this is the thing, and this is exactly the reason why the Centre for Migration Control does so well, even though their results of stats are flawed, is because it confirms the biases that these disillusioned people feel. Like they feel a sense of resentment, and it's easier to blame things on other people when they feel like something's being taken from them by said people. So I guess that's probably why it works out quite nicely. But you're so right. That was a really excellent response to a dense comment. So yeah, well done. That's good.
Satnav, violence at the far right protests in Leeds right now. This comment was made 43 minutes ago. So I don't know if that's still true now. I live in Leeds, basically. I've not heard anything. But thanks for the warning, I guess. I mean,
I'm Googling as we speak.
I mean, there has been far right activity across the country. It seemed like Canary Wharf sort of sparked it for this year, for this summer.
No, it was Epping. Canary Wharf was second.
Epping, then Canary Wharf, and now, well, it's all across the country.
Can't see anything on the news about Leeds.
Well, maybe we're safe for now. Super chats, £5 from TikTok Music. Big love to my turn lefties.
Thank you.
And Sarah for the support with my new single, Tic Tac Nightfall, Free Palestine. We shared it on our channel yesterday. It's also shared. There's a Discord for us now. It's been shared in the Discourse. But if anyone is watching now, haven't heard this song, just type in Tic Tac Nightfall, and it's a song about Palestine. I have to say though, Tic Tac, the production values of your music videos are really impressive.
Yeah, really impressive.
Really enjoyment. That's not the right words. It's joyous. I'll say that. Urbane legends. According to Israel, everyone in the chat is Hamas.
Oh, that's right. Who was it that said this hilarious comment saying that? It's like being on. It was someone in our turn left community, and it's like being on Oprah, and she says that Hamas is under your chair or some shit. Like I don't know. I've probably phrased that really badly, and I probably sound like such a dick for doing that. But like, it was a really good comment that someone made once.
It's so frustrating though, because there is like genuine like anti-Semitism out there, but like anybody who's critical of Israel is Hamas. I came across a post on Reddit yesterday, and it frustrated me so much because it was bullshit because it didn't make sense. And there was this Redditor who was posting on the Israel page on Reddit, and he was like, you could tell it's like a sycophantic post where he was just either looking for attention and or spreading propaganda. And he was just like, I was on the tube in London yesterday, and I saw a bunch of kids get on, like 50 of them, and they kind of looked Jewish and Israeli, and some of them looked maybe Arab Israeli, and I overheard them and they were speaking Hebrew, and because I've been to Israel, I said to them, where are you guys from? And he was like, the teacher immediately jumped in and started pretending to be Palestinian. We're from Palestine. And apparently the kids all immediately started speaking really bad Arabic, and he also left a comment saying, it even looked like some of the kids had a indentation of where their kippas were, and it was just like, even people in r/Israel didn't buy it, because they were like, you wouldn't find Israeli students who are religious enough to wear kippahs to be in a mixed school with Palestinian Israelis. Like, this just literally sounds like bullshit. But there is so much like propaganda out there about like fake Israel stories, fake pro, like, they're also they're that scared that they're pretending to be Palestinian. Bullshit. Bullshit. The same way that everybody is Hamas. Sorry, that was a rant I wanted to get out.
Yes, it's true though. I mean, I've had experiences where, when I was a lot younger, obviously the conflict's been going on for a long, long time, but when I used to work in Greece, there were a lot of Israelis that were sent over, and they were part of the IDF. And of course, when I was like 17, 18, so I was kind of before I knew exactly what was going on, but I knew vaguely. And a lot of them would pretend they're not from Israel. They wouldn't necessarily say Palestine, but they say, we're from like Jordan or something. So on the flip side, they're lying because they know that people hate Israel because of what they're doing to Palestinians.
Yeah, it's really frustrating because there is genuine anti-Semitism out there, and we should fight it. But like the way the conditions that they've created
makes
it makes it worse.
Yeah, it makes it worse, and it actually delegitimizes legitimate anti-Semitism, because if you're consistently saying you're being anti-Semitic when you say, well, I don't agree with Zionism, then you clearly don't know what people are criticizing.
Definitely. I mean, I think the Israel project of weaponizing anti-Semitism and also making Jewish people feel like there's an existential threat wherever they go is obviously in service to getting more Israelis and Jewish people to go to Israel because of their settler colonial projects, right? But they actually feed off anti-Semitism to make this project viable. Zionism, to me, is like today probably actually the biggest driver of anti-Semitism, because I would class Zionism and far right as the same sort of circles.
Yeah.
Which is where all these shitty reports come out, right? Was it you, Curtis, who covered that one a couple of weeks ago, where it was like any like mention of this specific word?
It was CST, Community Service Trust. I can't remember the name. And I think it was the British version. Think of like the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. And basically the ADL in America expanded their definition of anti-Semitism to include anti-Zionism or criticisms of Israel. The CST did the same thing. And in one of the quotes I used, it was like, it's criticizing Israel in an anti-Semitic way. I mean, what the fuck does that mean?
What does that even mean?
I know, it's crazy. But obviously that is a way of it's two things, right? One is upplaying, it's a word we've never used before, but upplaying the scale of anti-Semitism to create a culture of fear, which is obviously very good for Israel and Zionism. And number two, it's also a good way of silencing dissent against Israel. It's doing two things at once. And then, of course, the concern trollers in the media, particularly, I mean, it's so funny on GB News how bigoted that channel is, yet they're so concerned about anti-Semitism. And you could pull the biggest racists in the world, and suddenly they're concerned about anti-Semitism.
This is the thing. I think people also forget that those who exist on the far right, I'm talking far right, like particularly like English nationalists, they tend to be very anti-Semitic. Like I've found that I've had really, really weird conversations online with people who represent who align with being nationalists, but say that they support Palestine, but it's only because it kind of solidifies their hatred for Jewish people. It's like the weirdest like, I don't know, weirdest conversations I've had.
Just to jump on what Curtis was saying though about that report, I just had to double check another one because it's so ridiculous. This other one that I found like a year ago, it's beyond outrageous. Like how much they're trying to fund like the anti-Semitism train. There was a report done by like a like similar lobby group that works within the Spanish-speaking countries in South America. And I remember when this report came out, and it said this is the headline: 1/5 of Spanish language ex-posts is anti-Semitic. Jew hatred increases across all platforms. And I immediately looked into this. They used AI to basically track every single like social media post across all the major platforms, including YouTube comments. And they only used AI. They didn't manually count any of these. So they set the criteria. So it was basically like any post that was critical of Israel in any way whatsoever was counted in this report using AI with very, very little human intervention. So they're literally saying 1/5 of all Spanish tweets online were anti-Semitic. Like, how ridiculous can you get?
They're also incredibly lazy journalism.
Yeah,
because they just can't be fucked, so they're just going to run it through
absolutely
AI
wild.
and just spout the
I don't think
result.
I think it's intentional though. I don't think it's lazy journalism.
Well, no,
I
I
think
mean
it's very
I think
intentional.
it's sort of
But you're
it's not
right.
one or the other, right? It's obviously
Yeah.
intentional, but it is also fucking lazy.
It's so lazy.
Okay. Urbane Legends again. Let's be honest, the Arab countries have shown no interest in supporting the Palestinians, not a peep.
Not completely true. Like obviously there isn't any countries out there that are like really trying to help Palestinians in any way. But obviously there is more resistance among some of the Arab states than there are others. Some of them are sycophantic towards Israel. Some of them aren't. It always comes down to what's in people's own interest, essentially, and also who they're afraid of that they're going to be punished by America, be punished by Israel.
I think you've got to think some of the nations that don't want to bring in Palestinian refugees are probably worried about the consequences from Israel, given that they've attacked 5 different nations in the Middle East. And also, I don't know, it's probably less of this, but it comes to my mind. Taking in Palestinian refugees serves Israel's ethnic cleansing, because obviously Palestinians don't want to be refugees; they want to stay. They want it's their home.
Well, I think the Arab countries are going to be showing more interest now. Did you guys cover on the show on Wednesday with like Netanyahu saying he believes in Greater Israel? Did you cover that on Wednesday? I can't remember.
Who was the host? It was me, wasn't it? I don't know.
Well, I think the Arab countries are going to be paying closer attention now because depending on which version of Greater Israel you believe in, that includes land in Lebanon, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Kuwait, Egypt, and maybe another one. So they're going to be paying attention now when Netanyahu is literally saying, I believe in Greater Israel. So I'm sure they're starting to wake up a little bit more now as well.
But I think you make an interesting point, Curtis, about the whole Palestinian refugees and how that supports kind of Israel's ethnic cleansing. I agree. I think Arab states have rarely served Palestine. I think they've only used Palestine as like this political symbol. Like I don't think there has been real solidarity per se. There have been moments of like genuine Arab public pressure, especially from like grassroots movements or like civil society. But I think the overall pattern points to the fact that governments prioritize, particularly in the Arab world, regime survival more than anything else.
It's definitely less of the latter, because at the end of the day, the way states operate is self-interest. That's all it's going to be. But I just thought it was an interesting thing to think about, even if kind of like ad hoc, even if it wasn't like, oh, we're not going to take in Palestinian refugees because we don't want Palestinians ethnically cleansed, even if it's not for that reason. It's still taking in Palestinian refugees in neighborhood countries still does sort of give credence to the mission of ethnic cleansing. We'll go to another question or comment. JK says, Israel bans UNRWA and foreign journalists so that nobody will ever be able to count the dead in Gaza. So I think all the numbers we've got is always going to be quite conservative. 60,000, I think it's way more than that. But at the end of the day, we can never really know, because as Jay says, no journalists can go into Gaza because Israel blocks them.
Yeah, or kill them.
Exactly. And like with the dispute over numbers of deaths, every time there's been some sort of like conflict which has resulted in a large amount of deaths, NGOs have always gone in after and confirmed Hamas's numbers. And sometimes they are wrong, but it's only ever been like on the basis of a few percentage points. And sometimes it's like down and sometimes it's up. But the average is like, I think our margin of error over the space of like 5 different conflicts across multiple NGOs was a margin of like 3%, because they can't always guarantee that sometimes they will declare somebody dead simply because they are lost completely. Like they could have been just literally obliterated in a bomb. So there is like a small margin of error historically, but it's always been tiny. But now no one's ever going to be allowed in again to go and count. So we will probably, you're right, Curtis, we'll probably never truly know.
I think it's worth mentioning this. Becca A says there are 50,000 to 110,000 Palestinian refugees in Egypt. So Egypt is taken in many. So it's not even true to say that. Oh no, because I mean that's a propaganda line you hear, which is no one wants to take in Palestinians, and obviously the implicity here is Palestinians are obviously really dangerous radicals, and obviously that's not the case. But Becca here literally saying upwards of 110,000 Palestinian refugees are in Egypt.
That's actually tiny compared to Jordan. Jordan's got 2 to 3 million.
Yeah, because Jordan's annexation of the West Bank, and there was Egypt's control of Gaza. Like these things have historically happened. But I do think to myself that even when refugees come into a country or displaced and move to another country, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are living fruitfully. I mean, they still can be denied full rights living somewhere else as a refugee, or kept in camps and excluded from citizenship, sometimes often deliberately. So although great to have people coming from different countries, refugees coming to your country, it's whether they actually are afforded agency, and
which they're often not.
Yeah, exactly.
So Jim Speaks set up a Discord for us a couple of days ago. I am such a boomer, I don't really know. I mean, I was chatting with our viewership last night a little bit though in the Discord. You can't click on links in comments, I don't think. Probably copy and paste, but I thought it's worth putting up the link. So if anyone's interested, then they can go on the Discord. I mean, Jim was like, we can pass the ownership, but I kind of said, obviously, like I did it completely without asking you guys. Well, technically, we don't own the Discord anyway. But I was like, I quite like the idea that it's owned by the viewers, not us.
I love that. Yeah, completely agree.
Well, maybe what we could do is we could potentially put it in the descriptions of future videos, and we can signpost people there perhaps and put it on. I don't know if we have link trees on our socials, but maybe we could, so we can signpost people to other socials in the Discord.
Good idea.
I think it's nice though, because when Helena has her Discord, obviously people alert when the show's going live and stuff like that. That's really nice. But there's also just chats and stuff and advice, maybe such as this one from Zeke, who says maybe Kurtz can have a nice Italian soup. It cures anything. I nailed a soup last night though. So I don't know if I want it again. I've got pasta tonight. I don't know. I've probably eaten the worst fucking things you have.
Love pasta.
A little bit sick. Coops with £9.99.
Oh my god, Coops!
Thank you, Sarah and Liz, for a great show, and a shout out to the brilliant mods on the chat.
Thank you, Coops. Coop.
Jim says, "What a king!" That's in reference to the young lads on BBC saying the BBC is fucking complicit in the genocide when getting his A-level results. And he said it twice, even after the presenter was like, this is about A-level, not Gaza.
It's the way he was smiling as he was saying, like, the BBC are complicit. Like the BBC are complicit. I was like, legend.
My favorite type of clip of all time, kind of in that like scenario, is like when that guy was getting interviewed at the FIFA, was it the FIFA World Cup or something, and he was just like talking about
no politic here,
no politic, and he's like, I'm not talking about politics, I'm just talking about the match, and the Israeli guy kept saying it. I think he was like Swedish or something, maybe.
I remember.
Going free Palestine.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure if everyone's seen it, but like genuinely, this guy was talking about the game, and obviously Israel's in the game. He just said Israel, but I think a lot of Israelis are paranoid because they rightly know that we fucking hate Israel because of what they're doing. And he's like, no politic here, we're playing football. He's like, I'm not talking about politics, I just said the word Israel. And obviously that prompted him to shout out Free Palestine because what a G.
Such a G.
I think there's a couple more comments. There's one here. Being Legends again. When the Knesset voted to annex the West Bank, the BBC website didn't report it. And the top story was an interview with someone whose brother was being held by Hamas saying how thin he looks. Obviously, this is in relation to part of your story, Sarah, where you spoke about the passive voice used in the media when it comes to Palestinians. A Palestinian dies, whereas an Israeli is killed, or even when it comes to Russia, a Ukrainian is murdered. Palestinians are not treated as equals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what the BBC does. The BBC reinforces a narrative in which Palestinian lives and Palestinian realities are this like background noise, and then like Israeli perspectives are like the emotional focal point, and that's what people should be focusing on. But there's no neutrality there. There's no impartiality there, and that's what I find really frustrating about the BBC is that they claim that they are impartial and that they're neutral, but you're absolutely not. Like, you are setting an agenda through omission.
Yeah, so I covered that story on the day when it happened because it was on one of like news feeds from Times of Israel that it was going to happen later in the day, so I kept an eye on it. And then as soon as they voted, I did a video on it. And if I remember correctly, I think no one in Western media reported on it until the evening. And I think the first one to report on it was The Guardian, like 8 or 9 hours later. I was immediately like, "How is this? Oh, this should be breaking news. I'm gonna post about it now and like talk about it first." And then nobody reported on it for like half a day. And it was still not all media outlets reported on it at all. It's like they've just voted to annex the West Bank. Even if it's like a symbolic vote, it's still insane. And just the lack of media attention was disgusting.
It's quite funny though, because you're all, as like amateur content creators, I say amateur because I'm not getting paid for it, right? That it's always like, oh, we better get this story out really, really quickly before the mainstream media picks it up. And like in that certain instance, it's like, fucking hell, chill out, mate, because mainstream media are either going to be really slow on it or not pick it up because they just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, facts.
We actually have a late
Oh
last
my
minute
God.
Vegan Barnsley. Great show, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vegan Barnsley.
Thank you so much, Vegan Barnsley.
What's the best vegan spot in Barnsley?
Barnsley.
I'm Yorkshire. I can take Mick out the Yorkshire accent.
Oh, sorry, I can't. I'm a southerner. Sorry.
Posh southerner.
Oh, that's I was gonna raid into Kevin, but he's actually raided into ours. I need to see how the poll is doing. Where's the poll? I need to go back to the top because it's been
such a boomer. I had so many comments about my bathroom tiles.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I'm gonna reveal the results of the poll. Is Lewis filming from his bathroom? And what's so funny is I've got the stream paused on YouTube and I've just gone over to it and it's paused on Lewis touching his tiles. So I thought it was very, very funny.
It's quite fitting.
52 votes, and it's 77% of the people say yes, he's filming from his bathroom. To 23% say no. So the verdict is in. Lewis, maybe you should probably get off the bog when talking about political issues.
I'm going to see if I can get some fabric paint and paint these a different color or something.
You probably should have just got black tiles.
But like, I feel like black's just boring. I want it to get grey, but now
black might be boring, but at least it doesn't look like you're taking a shit whilst also providing excellent top-notch political analysis.
You are always giving excellent analysis.
All right. I'm going to hand it back over to you, Sarah.
Thanks. Bye, Curtis. Right. Thank you so much, Lewis. You've been bloody amazing as per usual. Please come back and be with me.
Sorry for the sweaty mess that I am.
Honestly, you've been sweating over your analysis. That's what's great about it.
My room temperature's gone up by 27 degrees because I've got my lights on. It's 27 now in here.
So good at analysing. That's why. Right, I'm going to stop with the jokes. But no, genuinely, you did a great analysis. I'm really, really happy to have you.
It was a great show. Thanks.
No, yes, because you're amazing. Right. Anyway, get rid of Lewis, Curtis. I need to be on my own. Thank you. JK, that's all we have time for. Thank you to all of you who've tuned in. Look at how good I am getting at this part. Thank you to our viewers who've tuned in. And of course, thank you to Lewis for joining me tonight. He is always just so spectacular and amazing. I learned so much from him. Remember to like this stream, and if you're not a subscriber, then hit that button, share with a friend of a friend. Join us on the Discord as well. I'm sure it's in the chat. If you want us to grow, then you can head over to turnleftmedia.co.uk/support, and there is a link to our Patreon where you can support us monthly, or follow the link to give us a one-time contribution. Alternatively, you can become a YouTube member for just 99p, but don't put yourself out. Again, remember, like, comment, subscribe, share. It goes a long way too. But I'm Sarah Delau, and I'll see you guys next time.
Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn left.